to say, especially coming from Los Angeles, where we seem to be kind of crushed for space. Why don't you come on up? If I can start your PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sure.
Good morning, everyone. I might invite you to cast your minds to some of the extraordinary cities around the world that you may have been to or had the opportunity to visit. And it could be Toronto, Singapore, Hong Kong, Cairo, Cape Town. Name any of them if you've had more than a few days or if you had the luck to be there for a weekend. And chances are you've subconsciously noticed how they enjoy their space. What makes that city unique, and the areas that you've wanted between meetings, or if you've had an appointment, you've probably never wanted or stopped to think, how is this quadrangle in this empty school, or how is this breakout space in this commercial building being used? Perhaps you've walked down a laneway or stopped in a park, and the remarkable thing is that this is an enormous component to how these cities are reflected in people that visit for just a few hours or for a week. And it's very exciting what these spaces represent and the opportunities they can provide. I'll add to that if you've had one of those weekends in one of those cities, you may have stumbled across one of their markets. And what I'm referring to is a market in the pure sense, particularly in some of those cities that are extraordinarily well known for their markets. It could be night markets, fresh produce markets, artisan markets, craft markets, fashion markets, or some of those incredible, exciting night markets throughout Central Asia. And why I'm drawing on markets is because these are an incredible accumulation of how people's lifestyles interact. The energy, people coming together, whether it's with or without alcohol, whether it's into the night, whether it's 6 o'clock in the morning, whether you've taken your French bulldog down or ridden your bike. Markets are one of the oldest forms of retail in the world, if not the first form. And they're enjoying an enormous renaissance. And why is that? In this age when we're blessed to have all of this convenience at our fingertips, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Walmart in Australia, Woolworths and Coles, the reason is because people are enjoying a realisation of where their goods are from. Social media is one of the leading causes of why we are now more aware, more than ever, of where your goods and services are coming from. If you pop down to your local market in any city that you might represent, let me just give you an example. If you've spoken to a banana farmer, you've ever reflected, where do bananas come from? I'm testing you all out if you had a big night, by the way, here. But if you said a banana farm, you're correct. What if I said mushrooms? What if I said truffles? What if I said caviar, scampi, oysters, or nitrate-free bacon? Chances are you are going to get that information from your local farmers markets. There are so many things that the label can't tell you when you're shopping at your supermarket. And might I add, supermarkets are an unbelievably brilliant form of convenience and retail that we absolutely need in all cities around the world. But what markets can provide is what supermarkets cannot. And that's what I call the market romance. And I link that over to empty spaces. It doesn't necessarily have to be a market that you are capitalising or realising space. If you are visiting here and you represent a regional council, if you're part of a governor's team from an exciting state somewhere in North America, if you're a Lord Mayor from a visiting city here in one of our great cities of Australia, you're visiting a city that's welcoming a future Olympic Games. So how can we realise value in space without perhaps needing to use enormous capital, borrowing funds in a time when the cost of construction is as great as it's ever been? The challenge around Australia right now is finding skilled labour. But interestingly, you can provide amenities and exciting activations that generate income, both to a council, an NGO, non-for-profit, or a community centre, and you're giving value to your residents, value to your visitors and tourists, and all you are doing is realising and capitalising on empty or disused space. And it's very exciting. If I can draw on 4 categories if you're visiting here and give you something to consider. You're either a landowner or a developer. You are one of the leading causes of how we have places to live and enjoy, from the fabulous infrastructure of stadiums to the excellent initiatives around councils partnering with groups like Mirvac, Lendlease, or perhaps you're a dentist or a grocer and you're simply looking to invest and build some townhomes for the future of your children, or simply just making an investment. To realise that and to capitalise on yield, to satisfy your loan capacity with your financer, you may have anything from 20 square metres to 20,000 square metres. I'm here to just make the case that you have the opportunity to realise value of space. Whether you have pedestrian footfall, whether you create it, whether you have a beautiful 100-year fig tree above you, you can do things with your council, with your neighbours, with your partners, with your state government to realise the value of space. In particular, I draw on the example of the stadium speech just before, which is fabulous, by the way, talking about how people come together and interact for sport. But just chatting with someone outside, I noted that a stadium is typically activated maybe twice a week. So all these things, when you've got a few billion sitting there in infrastructure, if you are a shareholder in that stadium, if you are a state government that has propped that up and you're looking for a return, these are the things you can look to and consider innovation. Maybe it's not a market. Maybe it's something else where people can come together. These things are very exciting. And in built-up cities like New York and London, Beijing and Moscow, these are wonderful alternatives and ways that you can innovate to create value and return on investment. The second thing is you're a council or a state government. Likewise with my first point, you are typically blessed with an abundance of space, and it's typically public areas, places usually that people are already mingling, where you can provide small businesses. And I make the great point that these small businesses are typically family-owned, very aspirational, highly skilled, and they're looking for something extra. And they deliver wonderful amenities and resources and choice. Choice to your constituents, choice to your residents, whether it's a choice of the type of banh mi bagel that they're making, whether it's choice of a handmade scarf, whether they've made a preserve or a honey or a farmer's driven in. These are all things that people benefit from. The third item is your community, of course. The residents themselves. Community groups, whether it's a sporting club, your kids' football game, they're raising some money to get a soccer match over in New Zealand. These are ways that we can provide, being components to find value of space or market operators, to give these kids an opportunity or these community groups a chance to do things that ordinarily they may not be able to do in one of the major retail infrastructure centres that we all know today as a shopping centre. And the very fourth point I'll add that are going to benefit from this and to consider is the residents, the tourists, and those that make up and interact in these spaces. They are the groups that, if you reflect again back to those cities, talk about why it was so special. And I speak from example, I'm sure all of you have travelled extensively. If you look at cities that are blessed with markets and the use of space, they have that energy. You know, they have a certain je ne sais quoi or a romance that a market gives, and you may not even notice it when you walk past, but just having people around creates safe spaces, opportunities again for children and those in the community to have something alternative other than mortgaging their house, putting a 6-month deposit down, signing a 5-year lease. These people, these residents that are aspirational or have something to offer are afforded an opportunity to come in and interact. Sure, they can start an eBay site or an Etsy site or a website, but meeting your customer and receiving that feedback from the onset and getting to engage residents and be part of their community has an intrinsic value that it's hard to put a price on. While markets again are one of the oldest forms of retail, I'll just summarise by saying with all of these components working together, and typically councils or state governments and those landowners coming together to discuss ways to bring and identify value by giving people opportunities, it enhances a city's view to all of its visitors, it enhances its prestige, and it gives its residents an enormous opportunity to further their lot. Thank you so much.